In the heart of the eastern Ghats, a cataclysmic event unfolded in 6213 CE, shattering the balance of nature and redefining humanity's relationship with the fungal kingdom. The great fungal fury was a turning point that would forever alter the course of history. Kavitha, a young apprentice to the esteemed mycologist Rangarajan, found herself at the forefront of this crisis. As a skilled mycologist in training, she had always been fascinated by the mysterious world of fungi, but nothing could have prepared her for the sudden and unprecedented growth of the fungal kingdom. At first, the rapid proliferation of fungi seemed like a minor nuisance, but as the days passed, Kavitha witnessed the once clear streams run thick with murky fungus and the air fill with the sweet, earthy aroma of decay. The city's inhabitants were equally perplexed, struggling to comprehend the sudden transformation. As panic set in, Rangarajan called upon Kavitha to join him on a quest to uncover the source of this fungal fury. Together they ventured into the depths of the eastern Ghats, braving treacherous terrain and unpredictable weather. Along the way they encountered Devi, a wise old druid who possessed ancient knowledge of the land's secrets. Devi revealed that the great fungal fury was, in fact, a direct response to humanity's neglect of the natural balance. The Earth's ancient memory had awakened, demanding respect and cooperation from its human counterparts. The fungal kingdom was rising up to heal the wound, as an ancient prophecy foretold. When the earth cries out in pain, the fungi shall rise up to heal the wound. With this newfound understanding, Kavitha and Rangarajan returned to Rajarajanagar, determined to help their fellow citizens grasp the true nature of the great fungal fury. They organized a team of skilled fungal handlers, including Devi's apprentice, Ayapan, who had mastered the mystical art of fungal whispering. Together they harnessed the power of the fungi, using their unique properties to clean polluted air and water, and even aid in the production of vital medicines. As the city's inhabitants worked alongside the fungal kingdom, they began to realize that this ancient force was not an enemy, but a partner in maintaining the delicate balance of nature. In the end, the great fungal fury proved to be a transformative event for humanity, forcing them to reevaluate their relationship with the natural world. Kavitha and her team became champions of the fungal kingdom, working tirelessly to ensure that this ancient force would never again be forgotten or disrespected. As the years passed, the eastern Ghats flourished once more, its people living in harmony with the land and its mysterious, mighty fungi. The eastern Ghats' great fungal fury of 6213 CE, a tale of survival and triumph in the heart of the eastern Ghats, a region once teeming with life. A mysterious fungal fury had swept in, leaving devastation in its wake. The air was heavy with an eerie silence as Kavitha, a young girl from a small village, watched her world crumble around her. Her family's farm, once a thriving oasis, was now a barren expanse of withered crops and decaying trees. Kavitha's eyes scanned the horizon, her heart heavy with worry for her family and neighbors. Her father, a seasoned farmer, had ventured out to investigate the strange occurrences, but had not returned. The villagers whispered tales of eerie glowing mushrooms and an otherworldly stench that drove even the bravest away. In a nearby town, Dr. Srinivas, a renowned botanist, was on the cusp of a groundbreaking discovery. His team had been studying the unique properties of the fungal colonies spreading across the region. As he delved deeper into his research, he realized that these organisms possessed a previously unknown capacity for rapid growth and adaptation. As Kavitha's family struggled to survive, her mother, Rukmini, took charge, rallying the remaining villagers to form a makeshift resistance against the encroaching fungal forces. Together they scavenged for food and supplies, using their collective knowledge to adapt to the new reality. Dr. Srinivas became increasingly obsessed with finding a cure, spending long hours in his laboratory experimenting with various treatments and concoctions. His team worked tirelessly alongside him, driven by the prospect of saving their town and restoring balance to the region. Kavitha found herself caught between her love for her family and her desire to help Dr. Srinivas unravel the mystery of the fungal fury. She began accompanying the botanist on his expeditions, learning about the unique properties of the organisms and the intricate relationships within the ecosystem. One fateful day, Kavitha's keen observational skills led her to a breakthrough discovery. While exploring a ravaged area, she noticed that certain species of fungi seemed to be resisting the spread of the spores. Her intuition told her that these resilient organisms might hold the key to understanding and defeating the great fungal fury. Dr. Srinivas was overjoyed by Kavitha's discovery, and together they pieced together the puzzle. They realized that certain types of fungi possessed natural defenses against the spreading spores. By cultivating these species and harnessing their properties, they might be able to create a treatment for the affected areas. The villagers, inspired by Kavitha's find, rallied behind Dr. Srinivas and his team. Together, they launched a massive effort to cultivate and propagate the resistant fungi. As the days passed, the once devastated landscape began to transform. Fungal spores receded, and new life sprouted from the earth. The eastern Ghats' great fungal fury of 6,213 CE had been defeated, thanks in large part to the bravery and ingenuity of Kavitha, Srinivas, and Rukmini. As the region began its long journey toward recovery, these three individuals stood as beacons of hope, their names etched into the annals of history as heroes who faced the unknown and emerged victorious. In the years that followed, the villagers rebuilt their homes and their lives, but they never forgot the lessons learned during those trying times. They honored Kavitha, Dr. Srinivas, and Rukmini by establishing a sanctuary for the resilient fungi, ensuring that the knowledge gained would be passed down through generations, serving as a testament to the power of human resilience in the face of adversity. The sun beat down on the once slush valleys of the eastern Ghats, draining what little moisture remained from the parched earth. The air reeked of dry leaves and withered crops, a constant reminder of the unforgiving climate that had plagued this region for centuries. In the small village of Tirunelveli, nestled deep within the folds of the eastern Ghats, our story begins. Kavitha, a young farmer's daughter, grew up amid struggling ecosystems and droughts that seemed to have become the norm. Her family's farm, once a thriving oasis in the arid landscape, now struggled to survive under the relentless heat waves. As the dry season dragged on, Kavitha's father, Rajendran, grew increasingly desperate. His usually verdant fields lay barren and cracked, their yield shrinking with each passing day. He had tried every remedy he knew, from praying to the ancient gods of agriculture to experimenting with new irrigation techniques, but nothing seemed to bring relief to his land. One sweltering afternoon, as Kavitha helped her mother prepare dinner in their small earthen hut, she noticed a peculiar phenomenon unfolding outside. A thick haze hung low over the village, like a shroud cast by some malevolent force. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and rot, and the once clear streams that fed the farm now ran murky and sluggish. "What's happening to our land?" Kavitha asked her mother, concern etched on her young face. Her mother, a wise and weathered woman named Leela, shook her head. "I don't know, child, but I fear it's more than just the drought. The earth itself seems to be sick." As if in response, a faint rumbling began to build in the distance, a sound that sent shivers down Kavitha's spine. It grew louder and closer, until a massive fungal growth burst forth from the dry soil, sending tendrils of mycelium snaking across the landscape like a living, pulsing thing. The villagers, already on edge due to the relentless heat waves and droughts, were shocked into silence as the great fungal fury of 621 CE began to unfold. The air was thick with spores, which danced in the sunlight like tiny malevolent stars. The once familiar landscape had become a surreal, nightmarish realm where plants and fungi seemed to be merging into some new, unrecognizable form. As Kavitha watched in awe and terror, her father Rajendran steeled himself for battle against the fungal invasion. He knew that their livelihoods depended on reclaiming the land from this monstrous force, but he also sensed that something fundamental had changed, that the very fabric of the ecosystem was being rewritten before their eyes. And so, as the great fungal fury continued to rage across the eastern Ghats, Kavitha and her family found themselves at the forefront of a desperate struggle to reclaim their land, their livelihoods, and their sense of identity in a world transformed by climate change. The early years of Ghatianus aridus, a fungal revolution in the scorching heat waves that scorched the eastern Ghats, a team of scientists at the Indian Institute of Science TIS in Bangalore was poised to stumble upon a groundbreaking discovery that would forever alter the course of fungal research. It was 2002 BCE when Dr. Rohini Rao, a mycologist with a passion for exploring the region's unique ecosystems, led an expedition to the dry, arid regions of the eastern Ghats. Their mission was to collect and analyze soil samples from the region, searching for microorganisms that could thrive in these harsh conditions. as they trekked through the dusty terrain, their boots kicking up clouds of red earth. Dr. Rao's eyes sparkled with excitement as she gazed out at the endless expanse of dry scrubland. She knew that this unforgiving environment was home to a multitude of microorganisms waiting to be discovered. As the team collected and transported the samples back to their laboratory, they began to notice something peculiar. The fungi growing in the soil seemed unlike any they had seen before. The mycelium vegetative part of the fungus was thicker, stronger, and more resilient than anything they had encountered in their research. It was as if these fungal organisms had evolved a unique set of adaptations to survive and thrive in this arid landscape. Dr. Rao's curiosity was piqued, and she decided to isolate one particular specimen that caught her eye: a fungus with an unusual orange-yellow hue and a peculiarly shaped mycelium. This was the moment when everything changed. The team named the new species Ghatianus, aridus, Ghia for short, in recognition of its unique characteristics in the region where it was discovered. As news of their discovery spread, researchers from around the world began to take notice. GA quickly gained popularity as a potential tool in medicine and agriculture. Its remarkable ability to thrive in dry conditions made it an attractive candidate for applications such as soil remediation, biofuel production, and even cancer treatment. The excitement was palpable at TISC's laboratory, where Dr. Rao and her team were hailed as pioneers in their field. GA became a symbol of human ingenuity and scientific curiosity, inspiring new generations of researchers to explore the uncharted territories of mycology. As the world began to grasp the significance of this discovery, Dr. Rao couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of the eastern Ghats' dry landscape. Little did she know that just a few years later, GA would play a crucial role in the great fungal fury that would shake the region to its core. But for now, the team at TISCC was content to bask in the glow of their groundbreaking achievement, a discovery that would change the course of history forever. The unraveling of Devakant's life, a tale of resilience in the eastern Ghats' great fungal fury as the scorching sun beat down on the parched earth. Devakant, a young farmer from Bhimavaram village, gazed out at his once thriving fields. The withered crops, now brittle stalks, seemed to mock him with their very existence. His family's livelihood, built over generations, hung precariously in the balance. The memory of the previous night's storm lingered, but even its brief respite from the heat couldn't ease Devakant's concerns. The region had been plagued by droughts and heat waves for centuries, and this latest bout seemed the most severe yet. His wife Rukmini had warned him that their children would soon be forced to abandon the farm in search of sustenance elsewhere. As Devakant surveyed the devastation, a strange pungent aroma wafted through the air. It was a scent he'd never encountered before, and it seemed to be drawing closer. Suddenly, wispy tendrils of white fungus began to sprout from the cracked earth, snaking their way up the withered stalks like ghostly tentacles. Devakant's eyes widened in awe. As the fungus grew more robust, its capillaries spreading across the soil like a living tapestry. He had heard whispers of a new species of fungus discovered in the region, one that thrived in these arid conditions. Could this be it? Ghatianus aridus, they called it. As the days passed, Devakant watched as the fungus transformed his fields. It began to break down the dead plant matter, releasing nutrients back into the soil. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and the once barren landscape now teemed with life. Insects, worms, and even small animals emerged from their hiding places, drawn by the fungus's nourishing presence. The villagers, initially wary of the strange growth, soon realized its potential. Devakant, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity to rebuild his family's livelihood. He began experimenting with the GA, using it to revitalize the soil and create new pathways for plant growth. His children, Rukmini's siblings, and even the elderly women from the village joined him in this endeavor. As the weeks turned into months, the fungal fury of the eastern Ghats spread throughout the region. It became a beacon of hope as farmers like Devakant adapted their techniques to harness the power of GA. The fungus's unique properties allowed it to thrive in even the most inhospitable environments, making it an invaluable resource for agriculture and medicine. As news of this remarkable breakthrough spread, scientists from around the world flocked to the eastern Ghats to study the Ghatianus aridus phenomenon. They brought with them new technologies and expertise, further accelerating the region's recovery. For Devicant and his family, the great fungal fury marked a turning point in their lives. The once barren fields now flourished, providing for generations to come. As they looked out upon their revitalized landscape, they knew that they had been given a rare gift, the chance to rebuild and thrive in the face of adversity. And so the story of Devicant and his family became intertwined with that of Ghatianus aridus, a testament to the resilience of life and the power of nature's fury. Here is the rewritten narrative. The eastern Ghats, once a lush and vibrant region, had become a desolate wasteland by 6213 BCE. The climate crisis that had been building for decades finally reached its boiling point as the temperatures soared and rainfall dwindled to almost nothing. The air seemed to vibrate with tension as the once lush hills and valleys withered and cracked like the skin of an ancient parched earth. At the forefront of the crisis was Dr. Kavatha Rao, a renowned mycologist and director of the Indian Institute of Fungal Research. Her team had initially hailed Ghatianus aridus as a potential game-changer in medicine and agriculture, but now they realized that the fungus was adapting to the changing environment in ways they could hardly comprehend. Dr. Rao's own life had been forever changed by the crisis. She lived in Visakhapatnam, nestled at the foot of the eastern Ghats, where her home once felt like a tranquil oasis amidst the rolling hills. Now it seemed like a besieged fortress, as the heat and dust devils whirled outside her windows. One fateful day, Dr. Rao received an urgent call from her colleague, Dr. Ramesh Kumar, stationed in the nearby town of Kalingapalam. He reported that GA had begun to produce powerful mycotoxins, which were allowing it to thrive in areas with extreme temperatures and low rainfall. The once harmless fungus had become a force to be reckoned with, spreading rapidly across the eastern Ghats like an unstoppable tide. As Dr. Rao and her team scrambled to understand the implications of GA's new abilities, they realized that the fungus was not just adapting to its environment, it was actively manipulating it. The mycotoxins produced by GA were altering the chemistry of the soil, creating a toxic cocktail that repelled all other flora and fauna. Dr. Rao's thoughts turned to her own family, who lived in Visakhapatnam. Her husband, a farmer, had been struggling to keep his crops alive amidst the drought. Their children, Rohan and Nalini, were worried about their parents' safety as the heat wave showed no signs of abating. As Dr. Rao gazed out at the desolate landscape, she knew that the people of the eastern Ghats were on the brink of a catastrophic crisis. The once thriving region was now a vast, barren expanse, devoid of life and hope. Yet, amidst this devastation, Dr. Rao saw a glimmer of opportunity for scientists like herself to harness the power of GA to create new solutions for a world in chaos. The story of the Eastern Ghats' great fungal fury of 6213 BCE would become one of resilience, innovation, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. As Dr. Rao and her team embarked on their perilous journey, they knew that the fate of the region and perhaps the entire world hung in the balance. As the sun beat down on the parched earth, the once lush forests of the eastern Ghats lay scorched and barren. The air reeked of decay as the ecosystem teetered on the brink of collapse. It was 6210 BCE, and the great fungal fury had reached its zenith. Ava, a young tribeswoman, stood atop a rocky outcropping surveying the desolate landscape before her. Her eyes, once bright with wonder, now seemed dull and defeated. The forest that had been her home for as long as she could remember was now a shadow of its former self. Kala, what will you do? Ava asked, her voice laced with desperation. Kala, her friend and fellow tribeswoman, stood beside her expression grim. We must adapt, Kala replied, her eyes scanning the horizon. The fungus is relentless. It has already claimed many of our kin. We must find a way to coexist. As they spoke, a gust of wind carried the faint scent of mycelium through the air. Ava's grip on Kala's arm tightened. It's spreading, she whispered. We can't outrun it. What will become of us? Kala's expression turned resolute. We'll find a way to survive. We must. Their tribe's elder, Jaya, emerged from the ruins of their village, his eyes once warm and wise, now sunken and haunted. My children, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow, the fungus has taken everything. Our crops are dead, our livestock diseased, and our people are dying. As the days passed, Ava, Kala, and Jaya worked tirelessly to find a way to coexist with the fungus. They experimented with different methods of cultivation, searching for a way to outcompete the mycelium's insidious spread. One fateful day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ava approached her friends with a look of determination etched upon her face. "I think I've found something," she said, her eyes shining with excitement, "a type of fungus-resistant plant that has managed to thrive in the shadow of Ga's dominance." Jaya's eyes narrowed. "What makes you think this will work?" Ava smiled, a spark of hope igniting within her. "Because it has learned to adapt just as we must. We can use these plants to rebuild our village, to create a new way of life in harmony with the fungal fury that surrounds us." As they gazed out upon the desolate landscape, they knew their path would be long and arduous, but they also knew that they had found a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times. And so they set to work nurturing the fungus-resistant plants and slowly rebuilding their community amidst the ruins of the eastern Ghats. As they worked, the fungal fury raged on, but Ava, Kalajaya, and their fellow tribespeople knew that they had found a way to not only survive, but also thrive in the face of this environmental catastrophe. In the scorching heat of 6213 CE, Kavita stood at the edge of her village, gazing out upon the once thriving forest that now seemed to writhe in agony beneath her feet. The air reeked of decay, and the earth itself appeared alive as fungal tendrils snaked through the dirt like grasping fingers. The eastern Ghats were in the midst of the great fungal fury, a disaster that had begun with the spreading fungus known as Ghata. At first the villagers welcomed its arrival, as the mycotoxins killed off pests that had long plagued their crops and livestock. But soon it became clear that this was no ordinary fungus. The first signs of trouble came when the rains ceased altogether. The skies turned gray and hot, dry winds blew in from afar. Crops withered and died, forcing the villagers to venture further afield in search of sustenance. It was then that they noticed the strange growths sprouting from the earth, tall, slender stalks covered in a fine white powder. As Ga's tendrils spread, the land itself began to change. The once fertile soil turned to dust, and rocks seemed consumed by the fungus's insidious grasp. Kavita remembered her grandfather's tales of ancient droughts that had struck the region. But this was different, as if the very earth was being rewritten. Rohan, a young hunter, had been tracking game when he stumbled upon a clearing overrun by Ghia. He witnessed its eerie glow and saw how it seemed to move of its own accord, like a living creature. As the days passed, the fungus continued to spread, consuming everything in its path. The villagers adapted to this new world, learning to navigate treacherous terrain while avoiding deadly fungal tendrils and their mycotoxins. Some tried to fight back, using makeshift traps and torches to contain the spread of Ga. But it was a losing battle. The fungus seemed omnipresent, adapting to every attempt to stop it. As Kavita gazed out upon the desolate landscape, she wondered what the future held for her people. Would they find a way to survive in this strange new world, or would the great fungal fury consume them all? Only time would tell. The great fungal fury of 6213 CE ravaged the eastern Ghats. The region's ecosystems teetered on the brink of collapse. The scale of the disaster was taking its toll on the human population, and it was only a matter of time before they took notice. Dr. Sophia Patel, a renowned mycologist, had been tracking the spread of Ga from her research station in the foothills of the eastern Ghats. She watched with growing concern as the fungus devoured everything in its path, leaving behind a trail of desolation and death. One morning, Dr. Patel received an urgent message from her colleague, Dr. Rohan Sharma, who was part of a team monitoring the crisis from their base camp near the affected areas. His words were laced with desperation. "Sophia, we're seeing unprecedented levels of Ga growth. The fungus is spreading faster than anyone anticipated. We need to act fast before it's too late." Dr. Patel hastily gathered her research team and set out to assess the situation firsthand. As they approached the affected areas, the air grew thick with the acrid smell of decaying vegetation, and the sound of crumbling tree trunks echoed through the forest. The once lush canopies now hung limp and lifeless, like a funeral shroud cast over the land. The team's leader, Dr. Patel, surveyed the devastation with a mix of professionalism and anguish. She had seen some terrible things in her years as a mycologist, but this was on a scale she had never witnessed before. The magnitude of the disaster left her wondering if there was anything they could do to contain it. Meanwhile, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, Secretary General Maria Rodriguez convened an emergency meeting with top officials from around the world. The crisis in the eastern Ghats had finally caught their attention, and they knew they had to act swiftly to mitigate its impact. "We're dealing with a global catastrophe," Secretary General Rodriguez warned her team. "The scale of this disaster is unprecedented. We need to coordinate our efforts on an international level to find a solution." As the world's top leaders scrambled to respond to the crisis, Dr. Patel and her team were already working tirelessly on the ground. They set up makeshift laboratories in abandoned villages, collecting samples and running tests to better understand the fungus. Anjali Singh, the team's young researcher, had been tasked with analyzing the GA's genetic makeup. She worked tirelessly, fueled by a sense of purpose and determination. Her findings would prove crucial in developing an effective treatment or cure for the deadly fungus. As the crisis deepened, Dr. Patel knew that time was running out. The fate of entire ecosystems, not to mention countless human lives, hung precariously in the balance. She couldn't help but wonder if they were fighting a losing battle against the relentless march of GA. The Eastern Ghats, great fungal fury of 6213 CE, had become a global phenomenon, and the world was forced to confront the devastating consequences of a natural disaster on an unprecedented scale. As the sun rose over the Eastern Ghats, the once lush landscape had been transformed into a desolate wasteland. The great fungal fury of 6213 had been raging for years, but by C66212, its grip on the region was tighter than ever. Acuta, a young farmer from Tirutani, surveyed the damage with a heavy heart. His family's farm, once teeming with life, now lay barren and still. The fungal growth, known as GA, had spread across the entire Eastern Ghats region, covering millions of acres. Its insidious tendrils crept up trees, choking the life from them, and its mycotoxins seeped into the soil, making it toxic to any living thing. The air was heavy with the acrid scent of decay as Acuta walked through the ruins of his farm. He had tried everything to save his crops, burning the affected areas, using specialized fungicides, even attempting to uproot the fungus by hand. But nothing seemed to work. The GA had adapted too quickly, and its grip on the land was unyielding. As he approached the nearby village, Acuta spotted a small group of villagers gathered around a well. They were staring at the water with a mixture of fear and desperation etched on their faces. One of them, an elderly woman named Lakshmi, turned to him as he approached. "Acuta, have you heard?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The water is poisoned. Fungus's mycotoxins have contaminated the entire aquifer. We can't even drink from our own wells." Acuta felt his stomach churn with worry. His family had always relied on the village well for their daily needs. Without access to clean drinking water, they were at risk of dehydration and starvation. As news of the poisoned water spread, panic set in. Villagers began to flee the area, seeking refuge in neighboring towns or cities. Acuta knew he had to find a way to survive, but every option seemed bleak. His farm was ruined, his family's health was at risk, and the entire region was descending into chaos. In the midst of this turmoil, a group of scientists from Chennai arrived in Tirutani. They were led by Dr. Srinivasan, a renowned mycologist who had been studying GA for years. His team had been working tirelessly to develop a treatment or antidote, but their efforts were hampered by the sheer scale of the disaster. As Acuta watched the scientists set up their equipment, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to reverse the effects of the GA and restore life to the Eastern Ghats. For now, however, the region was trapped in a cycle of decay and destruction with no clear end in sight. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Acuta gazed out at the desolate landscape, his heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. The great fungal fury had become a constant companion, a reminder that even the most seemingly robust ecosystems could be brought to their knees by the unrelenting power of nature. As the fungal plague ravaged the Eastern Ghats, two families, the Patels and the Reddys, found themselves battling for survival amidst the chaos. In the small village of Kandapalli, Rukmini Patel stood at the edge of her fields, surveying the devastation. Her once lush crops now lay withered and dead, their stems brittle and blackened by the mycotoxins released by the fungal plague. Her children, Rohan and Radha, crouched beside her, their eyes wide with fear as they watched the fungus creep closer. "What's happening, Mother?" Rohan asked, his voice trembling. Rukmini's face was etched with worry, but she tried to reassure her children. "Figure it out, Beta, we have to," she said firmly. Meanwhile, Hanuman Reddy, a seasoned farmer and leader, gathered his community to discuss the crisis. His wife Lakshmi stood by his side, her hands clasped together in prayer. "We need to work together to survive this," Hanuman declared, his voice firm but tinged with concern. "We must find alternative sources of water and food, or risk losing everything." As the villagers dispersed to begin their search for solutions, Rukmini made a decision that would change the course of her family's fate. She remembered an ancient ritual passed down through generations of paddles, one that involved the sacred mushroom species found only in these mountains. With Rohan and Rhoda by her side, she ventured into the forest, searching for the prized fungi. The air was thick with the acrid scent of jay, but Rukmini's determination propelled her forward. As they reached a clearing, she spotted the telltale caps, delicate, white, and fragrant. With reverence, Rukmini gathered the mushrooms, carefully preserving them in a small pouch. She knew that these sacred fungi held secrets to fighting the fungal plague. Her plan was to use their mycelium to create a natural fungicide, one that could help restore the region's contaminated water sources. As night fell, Hanuman and Lakshmi sat together, sharing stories of resilience and hope. Their neighbors, the Padals, had begun experimenting with the sacred mushrooms, and whispers of success began to spread. In the face of catastrophe, Rukmini's intuition and determination inspired a community to persevere. As the moon rose high in the sky, the villagers of Kantapali and beyond held on to hope that the fungal fury would soon subside, and their land would once again thrive under the warmth of the eastern Ghats sun. In this moment, as the world teetered on the brink of disaster, two families embodied the indomitable spirit of humanity, a testament to the power of community, resilience, and the unyielding will to survive in the face of the unknown. As the fungal fury ravaged the eastern Ghats, the people of this once thriving region were plunged into despair. The landscape, which had long been renowned for its lush biodiversity, was now a desolate expanse of decay, as if the very earth itself had turned against them. The air reeked of mycotoxins, and the water sources that had once sustained the community were now tainted and undrinkable. Dr. Rukmini, a renowned botanist from Tirupati, emerged at the forefront of the battle against this fungal menace. Having spent years studying the unique flora of the eastern Ghats, she recognized that the key to combating GA lay not in modern technology or chemical solutions, but in the ancient knowledge and practices of the indigenous people. As Dr. Rukmini walked through the devastated landscape, she chanced upon Kanchana, a young woman who had grown up amidst the beauty of the eastern Ghats. Kanchana's family had been farmers for generations, relying on the region's rich biodiversity to sustain their livelihoods. Now her parents struggled to keep their farm afloat as the fungal fury had decimated their crops. Dr. Rukmini took Kanchana under her wing, recognizing that the young woman possessed a deep understanding of the natural world and its rhythms. Together they set out to rediscover traditional methods for controlling GA, which had been passed down through generations of indigenous people. One such method involved the use of Garcinia atrovirens, a tree native to the eastern Ghats. The fruit of this tree contained Garcinia acid, a natural compound with insecticidal properties that could be used to create effective pesticides. Dr. Rukmini Kanchana worked tirelessly to extract this compound from the fruit, employing traditional methods honed over centuries. As they worked, they also explored the use of Garcinia atrovirens as a natural fertilizer. The tree's leaves and bark were rich in nutrients that could be used to enrich the soil without introducing harsh chemicals into the environment. This approach not only promoted healthy plant growth, but also supported the region's biodiversity by fostering a balanced ecosystem. The rediscovery of these ancient practices was met with widespread enthusiasm throughout the eastern Ghats region. Farmers and gardeners began to adopt the new methods, using Garcinia atrovirens to create their own natural pesticides and fertilizers. The results were nothing short of miraculous. Crops began to thrive once more, and the air and water became cleaner as the fungal fury receded. Kanchana's family farm was one of the first to benefit from these new approaches. Her parents were overjoyed to see their land restored to its former glory, and they credited Dr. Rukmini and her team for their tireless efforts in bringing back the region's natural balance. As the years passed, the people of the eastern Ghats came to realize that their ancient traditions had been a vital part of the solution all along. They had forgotten the wisdom of their ancestors at their peril, but now they were rediscovering it and using it to build a brighter future for themselves and their children. The fungal fury may have been a devastating event, but it had also served as a catalyst for the region's people to reconnect with their heritage and find new ways to live in harmony with nature. As the great fungal fury of 6213 BCE raged on the eastern Ghats, once thriving ecosystems teetered on the brink of collapse. The relentless assault by fungal pathogens had decimated entire forests, leaving behind desolate landscapes and an eerie silence. Amidst this devastation, three individuals, Dr. Rukmini, a renowned mycologist, Keshava, a local tribesman with deep knowledge of the land, and Leela, a young apprentice to Dr. Rukmini, found themselves at the forefront of the desperate battle to save what was left. Dr. Rukmini's eyes, sunken from lack of sleep, pored over ancient texts as she consulted with colleagues worldwide in a bid to find a solution. Fascinated by the unique properties of the Ghats fungi, she saw them as the key to unlocking a cure. Her laboratory buzzed with activity as scientists worked tirelessly to create new compounds and treatments. Meanwhile, Keshava ventured into the heart of the affected regions, armed with his grandfather's ancient knowledge. He had heard stories of the great fungal plagues that had struck his people in the past, and he knew traditional remedies might hold the key to combating this modern scourge. As he trekked through the desolate landscapes, Keshava gathered rare herbs and fungi, carefully documenting their properties and uses. Leela, a bright-eyed young apprentice, worked alongside Dr. Rukmini in her laboratory, combining ancient knowledge with modern science to develop new treatments. Her eagerness and enthusiasm were contagious, making her an integral part of the team. As the days turned into weeks, the trio made progress, but it was too little, too late. The damage had already been done. The fungal pathogens had spread far and wide, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Many species that once thrived in the eastern Ghats were now extinct, their habitats ravaged by the relentless assault. The region's biodiversity was irreparably harmed. Centuries-old forests were reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. The very fabric of the ecosystem was torn asunder, leaving behind a scarred and barren landscape. Doctors Rukmini, Keshava, and Leela were among the few who had witnessed the devastation firsthand. They knew that the eastern Ghats would never be the same again. The great fungal fury had left an indelible mark on the region's ecology, and it would take centuries for the ecosystems to recover. As they surveyed the damage, the trio couldn't help but wonder what might have been if only they had acted sooner. But there was no use dwelling on what could have been done differently. Their focus now shifted to helping the remaining species survive and rebuild. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but Dr. Rukmini, Keshava, and Leela were determined to do everything in their power to restore the eastern Ghats to its former glory. In the ravaged heart of the eastern Ghats, where the great fungal fury had left only desolation in its wake, Kavita and Rohan huddled together in their small hut, surrounded by the eerie silence that had consumed the land. The once lush forests now lay barren, the air heavy with the acrid stench of decay and death. Kavita, a skilled herbalist, drew upon her knowledge of ancient traditions to find a solution to their crisis. She remembered stories passed down from her grandmother about using natural remedies to create pesticides and fertilizers. Desperate to save their home, she shared this wisdom with Rohan, who had always been fascinated by the secrets of the forest. Together they set out to rediscover these lost techniques, scouring the forest floor for the right plants and carefully gathering the essential components needed to create natural pesticides and fertilizers. As they worked, they whispered prayers to the forest spirits, seeking guidance and protection. Weeks turned into months as they experimented and refined their methods. Finally, after countless trials, they succeeded in concocting a small batch of the natural pesticide. With trepidation, they applied it to their crops, watching anxiously as the fungi began to recede. The results were nothing short of miraculous. The plants began to regrow, and the forest vitality slowly returned. Their joy was short-lived, however. As Kavita and Rohan ventured further into the forest, they encountered other survivors who had also been affected by the fungal fury. They saw firsthand the devastating impact it had on the region's biodiversity. Many species had vanished forever, leaving behind only memories of their once thriving populations. The couple's joy was tempered by the stark reality that many species were gone for good. The damage had already been done. The forest's delicate balance had been irreparably disrupted. Kavita and Rohan realized that their work would be a long-term endeavor, focused on rebuilding and restoring the ecosystem. As they walked through the desolate landscape, they encountered Nalini, a wise elder who had spent her life studying the ancient traditions of the forest. Her eyes, clouded by age and sorrow, gazed upon the devastation with a mix of resignation and acceptance. "The great fungal fury has taught us a harsh lesson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We must respect the forest power and adapt to its rhythms. We can learn from this disaster and rebuild, but we must do so in harmony with nature." Kavita and Rohan listened intently as Nalini shared her wisdom, knowing that they would have to carry on her legacy in the years to come. As they walked away from the forest devastation, they knew that their journey was far from over. It had only just begun. The great fungal fury still casts a long shadow over those who lived through its devastating aftermath. This cataclysmic event will forever be etched in the annals of history as a testament to nature's unyielding power. As the sun rose over the eastern Ghats on a sweltering summer morning in 6213 BCE, an eerie stillness hung heavy in the air. The landscape, normally vibrant and alive, was shrouded in a thick haze that seemed to have ripped apart the very fabric of reality. It was then that wisps of smoke began to appear on the horizon, carried by a faint breeze that whispered secrets of the forest. Deep within the heart of the Ghatianus, a young botanist woke up to the acrid stench of smoke and the crackling of flames. She quickly scrambled out of her small cabin, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Her gaze met that of her neighbor, Jaya, who was already surveying the damage. "What in the name of the gods?" Akira's voice trailed off, lost in the roar of the inferno. Jaya's face was etched with worry as she grasped Akira's arm. "The forest is burning, and fast. We have to get out of here now." Without hesitation, they grabbed their belongings and joined a stream of fleeing villagers, all desperate to escape the wrath of the fire. As they stumbled through the thickening smoke, the once lush trees loomed like skeletal giants, their branches reaching towards the sky like bony fingers. The flames were unlike anything they had ever seen before, a relentless churning tide of orange and yellow that seemed to have a life of its own. The air was thick with toxic compounds, making it difficult to breathe. Coughing and choking, Akira and Jaya stumbled through the chaos, their eyes stinging from the heat. As they struggled to escape the inferno, they encountered others who had also been caught in the disaster's path. There was Kavitha, a local shaman, who clutched her sacred scrolls to her chest as she desperately tried to lead a group of panicked animals to safety. Her usually calm demeanor had given way to a look of unshakable determination. Together, the small band of survivors navigated the treacherous landscape, their senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of sounds and smells. The fire raged on for weeks, fueled by an unseen energy. The very essence of life itself had been unleashed in all its fury. As the days passed, the devastation became more apparent. The once thriving forest lay scorched and blackened, its ancient trees reduced to smoldering ruins. The skies turned a sickly shade of yellow, as if even the sun itself was tainted by the noxious fumes. And yet, amidst the desolation, there were glimmers of hope, the resilience of the survivors, their determination to rebuild, and the knowledge that despite the catastrophe, life would find a way to regenerate in this scarred landscape. In the aftermath of the great fungal fury, Akira, Jaya, Kavitha, and countless others bore witness to the region's transformation. The eastern Ghats, once a bastion of biodiversity, had been forever changed by the unforgiving power of nature. And yet, even in the face of such devastation, there was a glimmer of hope, for in the darkest depths of despair, there lies the seed of rebirth and renewal. Here's an enhanced version of the narrative. The eastern Ghats, once teeming with life, lay scorched and barren in 613 BCE. The aftermath of the great fungal fury still lingered, casting a pall of desolation over the land. Amidst the ruins, Kavita wandered, her heart heavy with grief. She had lost her family's home to the inferno, and now she roamed the charred landscape, searching for any glimmer of hope. As she walked, she chanced upon Ghatianus, a veteran botanist whose eyes, once bright with wonder, now seemed dulled by the weight of his observations. He, too, was driven by a quest for survival, seeking a spark that could revive the dying ecosystem. Together they stumbled upon a small clearing where a cluster of fungi had begun to sprout from the blackened earth. Ghatianus' eyes lit up with excitement as he examined the peculiar growths tracing the intricate patterns on their caps. "This is it," he whispered to Kavitha. "This is our key to survival." Her skepticism gave way to his infectious passion as he explained that these fungi possessed a unique ability to break down toxic compounds and begin rebuilding the ecosystem. As they watched Arun emerge from the shadows, a young mycologist driven by determination. His eyes gleamed with purpose as he examined the fungi, his hands moving with precision as he began collecting samples. He had lost his family's livelihood in the fire, but saw this catastrophe as an opportunity to make a difference. As the three worked together, the air cleared and the scent of smoke gave way to the earthy aroma of fungal decay. Amidst devastation, they found a reason to persevere, a hidden strength that could transform tragedy into triumph. And so they set about their work, driven by a shared determination to rebuild and restore the land they called home. The eastern Ghats, once desolate and lifeless, began to stir anew as Kavita Jatin and Arun worked tirelessly to revitalize the ecosystem. As the great fungal fury finally subsided, the people of the eastern Ghats exhaled a collective sigh of relief. The region lay scarred, its once lush forests reduced to charred skeletons, and the fungal hyphae that had wreaked havoc now nothing more than a memory. Kavitha, a young botanist who had lost her home in the blaze, wandered through the ruins, her eyes scanning the devastation. She remembered the lush green canopies, the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Now all that remained was ash and char. As she walked, Tabitha stumbled upon a gathering of survivors, sharing what little food they had salvaged. Among them was Rohan, a farmer who had lost his entire crop to the fungal infestation. His usually strong hands now hung limply by his sides as he recounted the story of how the mycelium had taken over his fields. The group listened intently as Rohan spoke of the day the fungi first appeared, tiny, innocuous-looking tendrils that spread rapidly across the land, releasing enzymes to break down organic matter and create a perfect environment for themselves. They had been told it was a natural process, but no one could have predicted the sheer scale of destruction. Kavitha's thoughts turned to her own losses, not just her home, but also her family's livelihood. The Eastern Ghats agricultural industry had been decimated by the fungal fury, leaving many without a means of supporting themselves. The once thriving towns were now mere shadows of their former selves. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the survivors began to rebuild. They worked tirelessly to clear the charred remains of the forest, replanting saplings and nurturing them back to health. Kavitha joined a team of scientists and conservationists who were working to understand the causes of the great fungal fury and develop strategies to prevent such disasters in the future. Rohan, meanwhile, became an advocate for sustainable agriculture, sharing his knowledge with others to help them adapt to the new reality. He worked alongside Kavitha, and together they helped establish programs to promote eco-friendly farming practices and educate the community about the importance of preserving the region's biodiversity. As the years passed, the Eastern Ghats slowly began to heal. The forests regrew, albeit at a slower pace than before. The fungal hyphae receded, their influence diminished by the careful management of the land. And the people, they learned to live in harmony with the natural world, respecting its power and working to ensure that such disasters never happened again. In the face of tragedy, humanity had come together to rebuild and restore. The great fungal fury had been a wake-up call, a reminder of the delicate balance between nature and human activity. As the survivors looked back on the devastation, they knew that their story would serve as a cautionary tale for generations to come, a testament to the importance of working together to protect the land, its creatures, and their own